A modern human assumes safety in the presence of a house cat, a creature that sleeps on sofas, tolerates touch, and consumes processed food. This assumption is a mistake rooted in amnesia. The animal watching from the corner of the room is not tame by design. It is restrained by scale alone. Felidae did not evolve to coexist with humans. Humans survived alongside felids by avoiding them, fearing them, and often being consumed by them. For more than 20 million years, cats were precision predators built to end vertebrate life efficiently, quietly, repeatedly, without waste. They did not chase. They calculated. They did not wound. They suffocated. If a modern human were placed into the world that shaped Felidae, before cities, before fire dominance, before weapons, the outcome would not be ambiguous. Against early cats, survival would be measured in hours, not days. Not because felids were monstrous, but because they were optimized. Retractable claws are not tools of play. They are structural adaptations to preserve edge sharpness for arterial anchoring. Forward-facing eyes are not expressive. They are depth-measuring instruments calibrated for ambush distances under 10 meters. Flexible spines are not graceful. They are energy storage systems that convert muscular contraction into lethal acceleration. The house cat did not abandon this design. It was miniaturized, not rewritten. The paradox is simple and uncomfortable. The animal humans now tolerate indoors is the reduced version of a lineage that once hunted our ancestors and won. The evolutionary crucible of Felidae was not shaped by abundance, but by competition and precision failure penalties. Early feliform ancestors emerged during the late Eocene, roughly 35 million years ago, in environments dominated by dense forests, fragmented cover, and short visibility ranges. This was not open plain persistence hunting territory, it was ambush terrain. Mistakes were fatal. Energy wasted meant death. By the Miocene, global cooling fragmented forests into mosaics of woodland and grassland. Large herbivores diversified. So did carnivores. Felids were not the largest predators in these systems. They were the most efficient. Unlike canids, which relied on endurance and group coordination, felids evolved around explosive anaerobic output. Their survival strategy assumed one opportunity per hunt, and failure meant starvation. Oxygen levels during parts of the Miocene were slightly higher than modern baselines, supporting higher aerobic recovery rates. This favored predators capable of rapid power discharge, followed by metabolic reset. Felids adapted with shortened digestive tracts optimized for protein, high mitochondrial density and fast-twitch muscle fibers, and scapular detachment that allowed forelimb reach independent of torso rotation. For a modern human inserted into this landscape, the danger would not announce itself. There are no warning sounds in felid ecosystems, no pack noise, no prolonged pursuit. A human upright posture, advantageous on savannas, becomes a liability in broken terrain. Exposed neck, slow directional change, poor vertical awareness. The environment that shaped felids was engineered for ambush specialists. Humans did not evolve for this space. They entered it late, briefly, and survived only by altering it through fire, exclusion, and eradication. Without those tools, the balance reverts immediately. Here, cats are not pets. They are structural apex threats. The first mistake a modern human would make in early felid territory is misjudging scale and silence. Small cats appear survivable. They are not. Even basal felids under 20 kilograms possess biomechanical advantages humans cannot counter without tools. Their threat is not strength, but control. Early cats such as Proilurus and later Pseudolurus were not large by modern standards, yet their kill success rates were high. They targeted smaller prey, but the mechanics of their attacks scale cleanly upward. A human ankle, wrist, or throat presents the same structural vulnerabilities as a deer's windpipe or a primate's femoral artery. Felids do not attack randomly. They select based on angle, isolation, and escape probability. A human unfamiliar with the terrain moves loudly, steps into leaf litter, breaks branches. The cat does not respond immediately. It tracks. Studies of extant small felids show stalking phases exceeding 30 minutes. Energy expenditure remains near zero. When contact occurs, it is not a slash. It is a clamp. Forelimbs hook, claws anchor. The bite targets the cervical spine or carotid triangle. In humans, even a partial carotid occlusion induces loss of consciousness within seconds. Death follows if release does not occur. This level of threat is deceptive because it leaves no spectacle, no prolonged struggle, no audible distress. The human disappears into undergrowth and is not found. Level 1 danger is not the apex predator. It is the illusion that smaller felids are manageable. That illusion has killed primates for millions of years. As felids increased in size through the Miocene and Pliocene, their hunting strategies did not become less precise. They became more specialized. Cats such as Machairodus, Homotherium, and early Panthera species were no longer generalist ambush predators. They were anatomical solutions to killing large, resistant prey efficiently. For a modern human, this is the threshold where survival probability collapses completely. Mid-sized to large felids possess bite forces calibrated not for bone crushing, but for vascular collapse and spinal disruption. Saber-toothed cats, often misunderstood as inefficient due to fragile canines, compensated with massively hypertrophied neck musculature. Fossil muscle attachment sites indicate cervical flexion forces capable of driving elongated canines between vertebrae or into the soft tissues of the throat with controlled depth. A human neck offers no resistance here. The upright posture exposes the larynx and carotid arteries at optimal strike height. There is no requirement for pursuit. One leap, one anchoring bite, and the nervous system shuts down. Unlike modern lions, many extinct felids were solitary or operated in small, flexible social units. There would be no warning chorus, no visible pride. The human would never see the attacker's face. At this level, injury is not survivable. Blood loss is rapid. Spinal cord compromise is immediate. Even if the human escapes initial contact, infection from puncture wounds, rich in anaerobic bacteria, would lead to sepsis within days in a pre-antibiotic world. Level 2 is where felids stop being threats and become execution mechanisms. Against them, human reflexes, endurance, and intelligence are irrelevant without technology. At the apex of felid evolution, predation was no longer merely about killing prey. It was about eliminating failure. Large Panthera species and terminal saber-tooths represented systems where energy efficiency, sensory integration, and anatomical lethality converged. These cats did not miss. Apex felids possessed binocular vision tuned for low-light ambush, with retinal rod densities exceeding those of modern humans by orders of magnitude. Night did not reduce their accuracy, it enhanced it. Their whisker arrays functioned as proximity sensors, allowing strike correction in complete darkness. Humans, by contrast, lose depth perception and peripheral awareness almost immediately after sunset. Mass estimates for some Homotherium populations suggest individuals exceeding 300 kilograms. This is not an animal a human can evade, intimidate, or injure with bare hands. More critically, this mass is delivered explosively. Felid spines act as elastic structures, storing kinetic energy during crouch phases and releasing it through synchronized hind limb extension. Impact forces exceed those needed to fracture human ribs on contact alone. Once grounded, the kill sequence is automatic. There is no improvisation, no hesitation. Neurovascular targeting ends consciousness in under 15 seconds. Fossilized bite marks on large herbivore cervical vertebrae show repeatable placement accuracy. Humans offer less resistance than the prey these cats evolved to subdue. This level of threat cannot be outthought. Apex felids were not just predators. They were evolutionary endpoints shaped by millions of successful kills. For a modern human, encountering such an animal is not a contest. It is a delayed confirmation of extinction-grade mismatch. The final and inescapable threat is not the cat itself. It is the environment that allows felids to dominate without opposition. Climate instability, resource scarcity, and physiological limits converge here to ensure that even without direct predation, a modern human fails. Felidae-dominated ecosystems are energetically unforgiving. Large cats regulate prey populations tightly, forcing herbivores into constant movement. This destabilizes food predictability. For humans, already inefficient foraging generalists without tools, caloric intake collapses rapidly. Protein sources are dangerous. Plant matter is often indigestible or toxic without cultural knowledge accumulated over generations. Exposure compounds the problem. Many periods of peak felid diversification coincide with climatic volatility. Rapid cooling events, seasonal extremes, and fluctuating rainfall. Humans lack fur insulation, have high surface area heat loss, and require sustained hydration. Dehydration alone induces cognitive failure within days. Injury is inevitable. Even minor lacerations from vegetation become lethal without immune familiarity or treatment. Meanwhile, felids carry parasites and pathogens to which modern humans have no resistance. A single infected wound becomes fatal without intervention. This is where the illusion of intelligence collapses. Strategy requires time. Time requires safety. Felid ecosystems do not provide it. Mother Nature enforces the rules here. Felids are simply the visible instruments. Humans are not punished for weakness. They are excluded for incompatibility. This level does not kill quickly. It ensures that nothing survives long enough to adapt. When a modern human dies in a felid-dominated world, the death is not dramatic. It is mechanical. The body fails in predictable sequences dictated by anatomy and physiology, not terror. In a typical attack, loss of consciousness precedes awareness. Compression of the carotid arteries reduces cerebral oxygenation within 5 to 10 seconds. The brain, starved of oxygen, initiates syncope. Motor control ceases. There is no prolonged pain response. If the cervical spine is compromised, neural transmission below the injury halts instantly. If the human survives initial trauma, the aftermath is worse. Deep puncture wounds introduce Pasteurella, Clostridium, and other anaerobic bacteria into muscle tissue. Without antibiotics, bacterial replication overwhelms immune response within 48 hours. Septic shock follows, vasodilation, hypotension, organ failure. Starvation produces a slower version of the same inevitability. Glycogen stores deplete within a day. Muscle catabolism begins within 3. Cognitive function declines as ketone production fails to meet neural demand. Decision-making degrades. Risk exposure increases. Predation probability rises. Even without direct attack, exhaustion leads to collapse. Felids exploit this. Observational data from modern big cats show preferential targeting of prey, exhibiting gait irregularities or delayed reactions. Humans in metabolic failure are marked automatically. There is no heroic final moment, just silence, tissue damage, and biological shutdown. This is not cruelty. It is efficiency. This outcome is not speculative. The fossil record preserves repeated confirmation of felid dominance and primate vulnerability. Cut marks on hominin bones are rare compared to puncture marks consistent with carnivore dentition. In several Pliocene and early Pleistocene sites, hominin remains appear in predator accumulations rather than habitation zones. Isotopic analysis of felid teeth reveals high trophic level specialization. Nitrogen-15 enrichment indicates sustained consumption of large vertebrates, not opportunistic scavenging. These cats were not supplementing their diets. They were controlling biomass flow within ecosystems. Comparative morphology reinforces this imbalance. Felid limb proportions prioritize acceleration over endurance, while human musculoskeletal systems emphasize efficiency over power. Trochine energy expenditure modeling shows humans require significantly more caloric intake to maintain activity levels comparable to a resting large cat. Even brain size offers no refuge. Neurological advantage requires foresight and cooperation. In isolation, cognition provides no counter to an ambush predator optimized for single-target elimination. Extinction data further supports this narrative. Large felids declined only when ecosystems changed, through climate shifts or human-mediated habitat collapse. They were not outcompeted by prey. They were removed by systemic disruption. The evidence is consistent across continents and epochs. Where felids dominated intact ecosystems, large unarmed primates did not thrive. The house cat is a historical exception, not a contradiction. The expected conclusion is that felids are the ultimate danger. This is incorrect. Cats are not anomalies. They are expressions of environmental pressure executed with precision. The true threat is evolutionary pace. Felidae refined their hunting architecture over tens of millions of years in relatively stable niches. Their bodies are conservative designs because they work. Humans, by contrast, evolved rapidly under fluctuating pressures, social complexity, tool use, and environmental manipulation. This produced adaptability, not resilience. Remove tools, culture, and collective memory, and the human organism is exposed. Fragile skin, slow reproduction, high developmental cost, dependence on learned behavior for survival. These are liabilities in ecosystems governed by immediate selection. Felids do not need to change to defeat humans. Humans must change the environment to survive felids. This is the inversion. The cat is not aggressive. It is compliant. With ecological rules, humans prefer to ignore. In intact systems, felids thrive because they fit. Humans perish because they do not. The danger was never the predator at the edge of vision. It was the assumption that intelligence alone grants immunity. Evolution does not reward cleverness. It rewards compatibility. The modern house cat is often described as a softened predator. This is inaccurate. It is a predator constrained by scale, abundance, and human-controlled environments. The blueprint remains intact. Domestic cats still stalk, still calculate angles, still practice kill bites on objects that resist. Neurological studies show their predatory circuits activate identically to those of wild felids. What changed was not the cat, but the world around it. Humans now live inside artificial ecosystems where apex predators are excluded, prey is packaged, and risk is suppressed. This creates the illusion of dominance. But dominance is situational, not biological. Remove infrastructure. Remove collective defense. Remove environmental control. The hierarchy reasserts itself immediately. Felidae are reminders, not of violence, but of scale. Of what life looks like when efficiency, not comfort, determines survival. The cat on the couch is not evidence of human superiority. It is evidence of environmental insulation. In a different world, one without walls, medicine, or fire, the balance shifts without negotiation. The lineage that once hunted our ancestors did not disappear. It shrank, waited, and adapted just enough to remain. Evolution never forgets. There is a final misconception embedded in modern thinking, that coexistence implies victory. Humans did not defeat Felides through superiority of body or mind. They survived by shrinking the world until Felides no longer fit inside it. Cities are not habitats, they are exclusion zones. Agriculture is not abundance, it is controlled scarcity. Medicine does not strengthen the body, it compensates for biological deficits evolution never corrected. Remove these layers, and the human organism reverts to baseline performance. Felides require none of this scaffolding. Their nervous systems remain calibrated for autonomous survival. Their senses do not depend on infrastructure. Their bodies do not assume rescue. This difference matters because it reveals something uncomfortable. Dominance today is not proof of long-term viability. It is proof of environmental leverage. Leverage can fail. Climate destabilization, ecosystem collapse, and resource contraction are not hypothetical pressures. They are reintroducing conditions under which precision predators once thrived. Smaller felides already expand into human spaces, not because they are changing, but because the buffer is thinning. The house cat, in this context, is not harmless. It is a compressed archive of predatory logic, a reminder of what works when systems break. Evolution does not favor comfort. It favors designs that persist when structures fall away. Felidae have already passed that test. Humans are still negotiating the terms. If the environment continues to shift toward instability, Felidae will not need to evolve to reclaim relevance. Their design already functions under scarcity, fragmentation, and darkness. Humans, by contrast, depend on continuity of supply chains, of social density, of controlled risk. This is the final asymmetry. A solitary human stripped of infrastructure becomes a statistical anomaly. A solitary cat remains a complete system. It hunts, feeds, heals, reproduces, and disappears without ceremony. It leaves little trace. This is why felids dominate fossil gaps, while human presence requires artifacts to be visible at all. In the deep past, cats erased individuals. In the present, they are minimized into companions. In the future, they will persist regardless of human outcome. Not through aggression, but through indifference. The modern human likes to believe extinction arrives dramatically. It does not. It arrives quietly through incompatibility, through bodies designed for a world that no longer exists. Felidae are not symbols of violence. They are benchmarks of efficiency, of sufficiency, of survival without explanation. If a modern human were returned to the world that created cats, the result would be unchanged. Not because the cat is cruel, but because evolution is precise. And precision does not negotiate.